Coming up today, the floor leader of South Korea's main opposition party vows to enact a special law to reopen the shuttered Kaesong industrial complex. The government suspended operations there following North Korea's recent provocations. The United States sends 4 F-22 stealth fighter jets on a flyover of South Korea in yet another show of force against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Plus, oil prices slump yet again despite a deal between Saudi Arabia, Russia and other crude producers to freeze output in a bid to halt the slide. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 17th of February. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We begin with domestic politics. In an address to the National Assembly this morning, the floor leader of the main opposition Minju Party has vowed to reopen the inter-Korean factory park in the North Korean border city of Kaesong that was shut down by the South Korean government last week. For more, we're going to jump straight over to our Shin Se-min at the National Assembly. Se-min, what can you tell us about the floor leader's remarks?
Yes, Mark, it was the second floor leader's address at the parliament given by Lee Jong-gar, the opposition Minju Party of Korea. Now, his remarks follows President Park Geun-hye's speech given on Tuesday, and it was a day later than originally scheduled, as President Park announced that she will give her and deliver her speech on the day that was scheduled for floor leader Lee Jong-gar. Now, following up on President Park Geun-hye and his counterpart, ruling party Won Yu-cheol's remarks, he had a lot to say. Lee Jong-gar started off with a critique of President Park Geun-hye's parliamentary address by saying the president's remarks were not enough to help the public understand the government's decision to shut down the Kaesong industrial complex. He also had harsh criticisms for South Korea's foreign, security and unification ministries, saying they had failed to monitor and handle issues related to North Korea. And he called for a full-scale reorganization of the government bodies. He then promised that his party would restore dialogue and strengthen economic cooperations between the two Koreas, and vowed to reopen the closed factory park by enacting a special law once his party wins victory in an upcoming general elections in April.
Well, he sounds very confident, and there were pretty harsh words for the government there and the related ministries involved in this decision. And we also understand that he took aim at Seoul's unification minister as well. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. The floor leader took a hard line against the unification minister Hong Young-pyo for his latest remarks. Now, Minister Hong had been under fire for his claims that the wages made by the North Korean workers at the inter-Korean complex were used to fund the regime's weapons development programs. Hong said that 70% of the money goes into the complex was funneled into the regime, but backtracked that claim by saying that he did not have the evidence to back that up. The opposition floor leader also touched on the issue of deploying the U.S. missile defense system THAAD, saying that the matter should be considered carefully based on the national security concerns. Now, the floor leader's speech comes after one given by the ruling party's floor leader on Monday, and the two will meet along with the top policymakers from both parties on Thursday, where they will seek to narrow their differences on a number of issues ahead of a full floor vote scheduled for this Friday. Now, topping the agenda will, of course, be a bill on redrawing Korea's electoral districts ahead of the elections in April, and pending bills on labor reform, human rights in North Korea, and counterterrorism measures. Now, that's all I have for now, but this is Shin Se-min reporting from the National Assembly.
Thank you very much, Se-min, for that report. Now we're going to stay with domestic politics, and South Korea's ruling party is outpacing its main opposition party counterpart in candidate registration for the upcoming general election that is set for April 13th. According to the party's candidate nomination committees, 829 candidates have registered for the ruling Saenuri party and 351 for the main opposition Minju party. The chairman of the ruling party, Kim Moo-sung, said the numbers are a sign of support for the party's platform of reviving the economy and improving people's livelihoods through reform. The Minju Party's registration committee attributed the outcome to the recent formation of the minor opposition People's Party, which it said had split the count on the Liberal side. The UN Security Council could impose unprecedented sanctions on North Korea as early as next week. This is according to Seoul's ambassador to the UN. Council members have been hard at work drafting a new resolution against the communist state ever since its fourth nuclear test more than a month ago now. Kwon with the details.
What's already taking longer than the process of drafting previous resolutions on North Korea appears to be in the final stages. In an interview with Seoul-based news channel YTN, South Korea's ambassador to the United Nations Oh Jun said there is a chance a new UN Security Council resolution on North Korea could be adopted as early as next week. Ambassador Oh says he is expecting stronger sanctions than in existing resolutions once the US and China complete their final mediations on the draft. That's been so far the main obstacle to a swift agreement on the matter. But Chinese sources and media outlets suggest that Pyongyang's closest ally has become a more active participant in the UN talks ever since the North's long-range missile test, which came a month after its nuclear test in January. One expert said Beijing probably won't give a green light to all of Washington's proposals, but that there could be some room for negotiation.
If the decision on the strong measures suggested by the U.S., such as a secondary boycott or sanctions on trade or exchanges of human resources, is left for related countries to decide on independently, China could uphold its pattern of consideration for its ally and not accept Washington's view 100%.
Backing up the prospects for a swift adoption of the resolution, an official at Seoul's foreign ministry told reporters after Tuesday's high-level talks between South Korea and China in Seoul that Beijing saw eye-to-eye with South Korea on sanctions that would hurt North Korea. The official added that the bilateral talks made up a much larger portion of the meeting in Seoul than the possible deployment of the U.S. missile defense system THAAD in South Korea, to which China objects, and that the Chinese side briefed Seoul in detail on the current progress at the UN headquarters. Kwon, Arirang News.
Now to a concerning assessment. North Korea now has the capability to conduct nuclear tests without exhibiting any signs of test preparations. This is according to US-based North Korea monitoring site 38 North. It says the North appears to have altered its test preparation practices in order to make them more difficult to detect, as demonstrated by its fourth nuclear test that happened on January 6th. The site says previous images suggest Pyongyang may have already finished digging several underground tunnels at its main nuclear test site in Punggye-ri, which would allow them to conduct another test with, quote, little or no warning. 4 US stealth fighter jets have just completed a flyover of South Korea in yet another show of force against North Korea following its recent provocations. Our Kim Hyun-bin has the details from Seoul's Defense Ministry. Hyun-bin, quite the air show for Pyongyang to ponder.
That's right, Mark. The 4 jets that flew over Osan Air Base a little south of Seoul a few minutes ago are F-22 Raptors, which are seriously powerful pieces of military hardware. Now, it was escorted by 4 South Korean F-15s and 4 U.S. F-16s on each side. Now, F-22s were dispatched by the U.S. Air Base in Okinawa this morning as part of a provisional deployment aimed at pressuring North Korea. Now, South Korean military official says 2 F-22s will be temporarily stationed at the Osan Air Base. Now, the F-22 is a key part of Washington's key strategic weaponry and considered one of the best fighter jets in the world. Now, they are equipped with full stealth capabilities as well. Now, this means they could infiltrate North Korean airspace undetected and destroy the regime's key nuclear and missile infrastructure before the North knew what hit them. Now, their range also allows them to target anywhere in North Korea when flown from the south. Now, the F-22s are not the first strategic U.S. weapons deployment here in recent weeks. The U.S. flew a B-52 bomber over the peninsula last month, plus a nuclear-powered submarine USS North Carolina docked in Korea's southern city of Busan on Tuesday. The nuclear power's carrier USS John C. Stennis is also scheduled to take part in the annual South Korea-U.S. defensive drills, Key Resolve and Full Eagle, which start early next month. Now, we also hear word B-2 stealth bombers could also fly over in the coming weeks. So all the big guns of the U.S. Air Force and Navy have or will make an appearance over South Korea in a show of force the Allies hope will make North Korea think twice before carrying out another provocation. Back to you.
Thank you, Hanbin. Now, Russia and other major crude giants have agreed to freeze output, hoping it might stop the price slide that has dogged the global economy for months now. But with the freeze conditional on other producers following suit, the announcement was not enough to stop crude prices from falling yet again. Kim Min-ji with the details.
Global oil prices tumbled again on Tuesday, erasing early gains. West Texas Intermediate fell over 1.3% to finish at just $29 a barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Brent crude fell more than 3% to $32.36 a barrel. This comes despite crude giants Russia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Venezuela agreeing to freeze output at January levels. That's if other producers adopt the proposal in what would mark the first joint OPEC and non-OPEC deal in 15 years. But as it's a freeze, not a cut, it's not expected to solve the supply glut, and with Iran planning to boost production to regain market share after years of sanctions, analysts don't see the situation to get any better.
It underlines the underlying problems we have, that we are going to see more and more supply into the market, especially with Iran coming fully on stream, and I fully expect downward pressure on oil to continue after a small respite this week.
Global oil prices have plunged over 70% in the past 20 months, pushed down by near-record production from both OPEC and other producers. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's jobless rate rose in January due to some seasonal factors. Statistics Korea says the unemployment rate stood at 3.7% last month. That's up from 3.2% in December and 0.1 percentage point lower compared to the year before. The number of employed people in Korea stood at 25.4 million in January, with 339,000 new jobs being created from a year before. Now, the 11-month low in the number of new jobs is attributed to the cold weather, preventing the agriculture and fisheries sectors hiring more people. The seasonally adjusted jobless rate remained unchanged from a month ago at 3.5%. However, the youth unemployment rate rose to a 7-month high of 9.5% last month. That's compared to 8.4% in December. Now, in the past 30 years, single-person households have gone from less than 7% to 27% of Korea's total. In under 2 decades from now, more than a third of all households will be made up of just one person. Park Jung-hong has the details.
An increasing number of people in Korea are choosing to live alone, according to latest figures. The number of one-person households was found to have jumped nearly 8 times in just 30 years and is picking up pace. The Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs found that in 1985, the number of single-person homes stood at 661,000. But last year, the figure was estimated to have surged to more than 5 million. In terms of proportion, one-person households accounted for just below 7% of the total in 1985. That shot up to 27.1% in 2015, and by 2035, it's estimated to further soar to 34.3%. Analysts say this means one-person homes will grow to a similar level, taken up by two-generation households, which have traditionally been the mainstay of Korea's household demographics. Two-generation households refer to a parent or parents living with their children. Their number is steadily on the decline due to Korea's chronically low birth rate. This is also reflected in the increasing number of households made up of childless married couples. In a 2012 National Fertility Survey, the average number of children born to one woman between the age of 15 and 49 was 1.75. The institute noted that households with 2 or more generations wanted to have more children due to the reduced burden of childcare required of the parents. Park Jong-hong, Arirang News.
Now, US President Barack Obama and the heads of ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, have a message for China. Stop stirring tensions in the South China Sea. Park Ji-won reports.
Concluding a two-day summit in California with the leaders of all 10 ASEAN member states, U.S. President Barack Obama said they had to cool tensions in the South China Sea by resolving their territorial disputes.
We discussed the need for tangible steps in the South China Sea to lower tensions, including a halt to further reclamation, new construction, and militarization of disputed areas.
Saying freedom of navigation must be assured to all countries, Obama stressed that maritime disputes should be resolved through the application of international law.
We will continue to help our allies and partners strengthen their maritime capabilities, and we discussed how any disputes between claimants in the region must be resolved peacefully through legal means, such as the upcoming arbitration ruling under the UN Convention of the Law of the Seas, which the parties are obligated to respect and abide by.
The ongoing territorial disputes date back to the end of World War II, when the 1951 San Francisco Treaty failed to stipulate possession of the Spratly Islands. The islands are made up of hundreds of islets and coral reefs spread across hundreds of thousands of square kilometers and are a potential goldmine of oil and natural gas. The summit between the U.S. and the 10 ASEAN member countries like Singapore, Vietnam, and Indonesia has been held since 2009. The summit aims to deepen partnership between the U.S. and the third largest economy bloc in Asia in the areas of security and economy. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we are following on this Wednesday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website, arirang.com/news, and check out our smartphone application. Just search for Arirang TV and you should be able to find it. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.